Sam, you need to get your dad back on the podcast. He said, these moments don't last forever. He goes, you don't think about it until obviously it's too late. But he said if I could sit down and talk hunting with my dad again, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down. Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another Fall Obsession Podcast episode. Fall Obsession Podcast is driven by our friends over at Ridge Rock Hunt Company, Derek and Lacey and the folks over there. They take good care of us, and I'll give them a shout out here at the end of our podcast episode. I am Sam with Fall Obsession. I'm your podcast host, and thank you guys for tuning in. Sitting up here, I'm actually at my parents' house on this Father's Day weekend with my dad, Mark. Welcome back to the podcast, Dad.
Thanks, son. Hello, podcast listeners.
We are, so we're kind of throwing together an episode real quick. First off, I honestly didn't think that I would have an episode for this Father's Day weekend, just with the way my work schedule went this week and recording schedule on top of that. But as I was driving over here, I thought it might be a good opportunity to sit down with you. And while I'm talking about it too, for our listeners, we're not. This is a little bit more informal than our podcasts have been recently. We don't have our fancy equipment. I'm just recording on my cellular device, and if you hear my kids screaming in the background, well, it's because we're here celebrating Father's Day. But throwing one together real quick, and like I said, I was thinking about some stuff as we were driving over here today, and just want to get you back on here and chat a little bit. Kind of what inspired me, and I know I've already told you this, but I'll say it again for our listeners' sake. We had recently one of our staffers, and he's a loyal listener to the podcast. He's a fellow firefighter. He had his dad pass a few weeks, probably just shy of a month ago now. I don't remember the exact date. But a week or two after his dad passed, he sends me a text. And him and his dad were longtime hunting buddies, just for decades and decades. They'd spent time together. They were very close. So it definitely hit hard for him, losing his hunting partner like that. And he sent me a text, again, loyal podcast listener, and he said, Sam, you need to get your dad back on the podcast. He said, these moments don't last forever. He goes, you don't think about it until obviously it's too late. But he said if I could sit down and talk hunting with my dad again, I'd do it in a heartbeat. And when he sent that to me, and I thought about it, I was like, I know we've gone on a lot of hunting adventures together, over the years, and hopefully many more to come, especially with the new property that we're on. And I know we've talked about that on the podcast before, but yeah, it's, you kind of, until something like that happens to somebody that you know and that you're close to, and you have kind of that more personable perspective, I guess, it really, you really don't think about it a whole lot. And so that's why we're sitting down and starting. Obviously won't be the last time that I have you on here, especially with the hunting season we have planned, but kind of want to take the opportunity this Father's Day weekend to sit down and talk hunting with my dad.
And I appreciate what your listener has to say, son. My dad died, I think about 22 years ago, suddenly. And like your listener said, there's not a day that doesn't go by that I'd like to talk to him.
Yeah. And
at least have a conversation. He wasn't a hunter, not like us, and
right.
He did bird hunting, but it didn't take us, so that wasn't a commonality. But we had a lot of things in common, and we never shared that. But just to have a conversation, and like your listener said, it's too late. You wish you could go back, And your grandma, my mom, died a year ago this upcoming Saturday.
Mhm.
So, and that hits me pretty hard too, because she lived with us for 5.5, 6 years. So
Yeah.
so it's good to be with you on Father's Day. You being a father too, you're two of my grandchildren. So happy Father's Day to you.
Yeah, thank you. Happy Father's Day to you. I know I posted something on our social media this morning. Just kind of I try to throw together and let our staffers contribute to a Father's Day post, and so I got to, and I still have them coming in. I'm probably gonna have to do a follow-up post because some of the submissions I didn't get in time for this morning, but they just seeing pictures and hearing stories of guys hunting with their dads, or some of our staffers hunting with their kids now, and it's I summarized it briefly for the post, but when you have a dad that's influential in getting you started in hunting, that like many of our listeners surely know, that definitely it's definitely a special bond, and I know, you and I looking back, it's like we have a lot, like I said at the beginning, a lot of memories to look back on. Some good, some bad, some not great in the moment, and we look at them now and laugh, and I'm sure we'll have more to come that are good and not great, and that we'll laugh about hopefully years from now on another podcast, but and I know we've told stories and stuff before, and I know many come from where you got me started out there in Hamilton, and I kind of mentioned that in my podcast with Nick 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever that was, and how I told a story of how, like, my first trip out there when Mr. Davis took us out there, and you shot a couple of those, I believe, and kind of how that was my introductory, and then going into my first year, the year after that, I can only now. In my shoes now, I can only imagine how frustrated you were, how long it took me to kill a deer that year.
Well, yeah, two things. When we went out with Mr. Davis and I shot that second deer, we were going home, and you looked at me and said, "Dad, I like hunting. It sure is easy." And we were lucky because we got two, in that day with Mr. Davis, and as you said, first driving on the property, that big field out there, and then one later on. So. But as you know, you more often than not, you come back empty-handed and having missed a shot or not even gotten a shot. So I still remember that. And I remember your first deer, at the SST Stand. You and I were together, and you shot that doe, big old doe. And so, those are memories that'll stick in my brain and your brain. And you said Wyatt, your son, my grandson, probably go out scouting this year and sit in the stand for a few hours because he's going to be 4 at the end of the month, so that's pretty young to be sitting there for hours and hours. So get him, we've got to train him up, so to speak.
Like you said, he's 4, so kind of the plan this year is, obviously the meat of our hunting season will be, you and I doing our thing, and hopefully get my wife out there too to kill her first deer. But with Wyatt, he's intelligent enough to at least be able to put him in a rifle stand for a couple hours and let him experience an evening hunt with a few deer out in front of him,
and catch some fish and throw some rocks and
be a kid,
do a boy thing kind of things. That's necessary, so
yeah. You mentioned the SST Stand. I know one of our very first podcasts we ever had, episode 3, you and I sat in this room and recorded that one of our first episodes. But I don't know if I can't remember, my point is I can't remember if we talked about the SST Stand on that property, which was kind of a unique find, I feel like, that we had out there that year.
Yeah. And
then kind of putting together a makeshift stand in between 3 trees, just with a few 2x4s to make it work. And
it was an area that wasn't hunted much. One of the guys had put up an archery platform, but it wasn't in a good place, and deer would spot you as soon as I got to the open spot and looked up, there you are. So he hadn't had any luck at all, and you and I happened to 3 trees and put some 2x4s across it, and then we brush it up every time we go in there and sit behind it, and that was where again we see deer there pretty almost every time we sat. I know you sat there a lot.
I hunted there a lot, especially after I killed my first deer. I killed after that first one. I killed several deer out of that stand.
Right.
And I mean that
It was a good place.
But I think I forget the acronym, but we called it SST. I think for Sam Super Stand or something is what what we wanted to call that. So that's where that comes from. But it yeah, it was a really good spot. It was probably I'd say probably 50 yards back farther into the tree line from where that tree stand was, and just in a little clearing back in there, and just kind of a network of trails. Seemed like they met in that clearing, and
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't do anything special. We threw up some 2x4s every couple months. We'd kind of brush it in a little bit more to stay hidden, and then throw some corn on the ground.
And of course, the grass would get high, so sometimes it's hard to see the deer because the grass is so high. And there's other times, if you remember, you told me you were sitting in the stand and deer would walk right beside you. Just you could reach out and touch them when they're walking by you. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do, and I remember in particular there was one little spike. Like he had to be like a yearling. Like he was a tiny little deer, but he came out to my left, probably 20 yards in front of me, and he turned, and there was a trail. I'd never seen a deer walk it. There was a trail that literally went from me to you, basically on the other side of the 2x4, right next to that stand of trees. And excuse me, that little spike, he walked right next to me, not 3 feet from me. Just and never looked at me, never. I mean, attempted to smell me. I guess I don't know. I can't think that as a 10-year-old kid I was that invisible there. But I mean, he never even glanced at me. So he was just a tiny little buck just cruising through. But yeah, they would walk right. I mean, it was kind of in the middle too. They'd walk right by you. They'd be behind you sometimes, and as if they came out in front of you, that you had the opportunity to shoot one. So
I think we might have told in that number 3 episode. I'm not sure. I don't remember, but I know the chocolate brown we talked about that you talked about in your podcast a few weeks ago. But I remember one time we finished the morning hunt, and remember walking around. Our pattern was we would get out of the stand in the morning, get something to eat, and then we might walk the property just to see if we might catch something walking around or see something.
yeah.
And we're walking, and I usually would not take a rifle. At the time, you're a rifle hunter, and I said, take yours. And I remember you saying, "Hey, there's a buck over there," and I couldn't see it. I didn't have my glasses on, I couldn't see it, and I said, "Where?" "Over there, by that stand of trees." And so I got down on all fours, and you laid your rifle across my back and took that shot.
I think I shot twice. I think I missed the first time because he's standing in a mesquite thicket again, or on the other side of a mesquite thicket underneath a couple big oak trees. And I got a decent look at him. I tried to make a shot. I don't remember there being 2 holes in that deer. I believe I missed because he ran about 50 yards and then he stopped. And I didn't know if I hit him, and we moved a little bit, and I asked you to get down again so I could shoot him, and you still hadn't seen this deer that I'm trying to shoot. You're like, "Where is he?" I'm like, "He's right there." And you just trusted me as a 12-year-old kid and got down.
But you knocked him down.
Yeah, I shot him the second time and dropped him right there and walked
It
up.
was a little 8 point, I think.
Yeah,
It is a decent deer for
A
them.
decent little 8 point, yeah. No, I mean, nothing to write home about for sure, but it was my first. Like I'd shot spikes and stuff before that, little cow horn, but that was my first buck with an actual frame to him, so I was pretty excited about that. And then later on, he was followed. I think the next buck that I probably killed was that chocolate 10 later on. So, progressed from there, I guess. But I remember being super excited about that deer because he's just a cool buck. I mean, just a cool experience. One of those things you never forget. So.
Right.
And we had a lot of hogs out there too. I know we killed a bunch of pigs while we were out there too, or at least you did. I don't know if I shot as many as you did out there. I don't think so.
Well, there's hogs everywhere in Texas, so
Yeah, it's not hard to find. We got a bunch of them out of our new place, the Texas Dirt property now. So there's plenty of hog killing to go around.
And I find it interesting. I was listening to your podcast with Sarah last week, and I listened to that earlier in the day, and you know, she talks about, and most of your guests talk about their upbringing. How they got, you ask them how they got into it, and they say my dad. Usually, it's my dad, you know, got me into it, or you know, like Sarah said, I want to spend quality time with Dad, so I had to hunt.
Yeah.
And that's how it seems like most people are brought into the hunting industry, or at least the hunting, you know, the relationships start with your father, probably. Maybe your mom, but mostly your father.
No, there's plenty of that. I mean, I think every hunter has that, whether it's their actual father or just a mentor-like figure. I think that they pretty much have to have that almost to start. I know, granted, I do know people that have done this, but I know very few that have just decided to pick it up and give it a try, and have used the online world, you know, to kind of be their mentor and be their teachers. And you know, we get asked a lot of questions in our messengers, on our social media apps, and in the comment sections on our YouTube sometimes about, you know, certain things. And you know, we're happy to contribute as an organization to do our best to, you know, provide knowledge for people and everything. But you're right, most people get that start, I feel like, with their dad, you know. And it's really cool to be able to, for me at least, to be able to look back on it as a kid, you know, and have those memories, but now be building new memories as an adult, soon to have a son of my own coming into the picture with us, and Lord willing, have 3 generations, you know, hunting together will be pretty awesome. But you know, I don't know, it's just it's an interesting journey for sure, you know. And I think that's what it is, you know. It's a journey. It's not a book with a definitive ending or something, you know. It's something that you live day by day, and you progress through, and you know, you go on the journey of your hunting life with those who have influenced you. Mm-hmm. So,
and you told Sarah last week, I said I'm privileged to hunt on the lease with my dad, which, you know, that's the same for Nick and Robbie too.
Yeah.
But and me with my son, you know, that's for the dads, we say with our sons too, because it is a unique privilege. Even last week, you know, on June 11th, we had a work day out there, and you and I spent the day out there together, and it was hot. It was, you know, 100-degree plus, and that's that'd be the first episode of season 2 of Texas Dirt. But you know, that's neat just to hang out together, and you know, buying a few 100 pounds of corn, and okay, we got to pay, you know, a boatload of money to get the diesel to get out there.
I know, it's
and all, but it's just hanging out together for the day, and you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and I'm watching a series right now, and not to plug anybody else's series. There's no issue with it. Obviously, no affiliation, but I'm watching a series that Michael Waddell has right now on the Waypoint TV app, is what it's called, a hunting and outdoor streaming platform, which our podcast is also on. But he's got basically kind of like a lifestyle show, just kind of showing what he's doing out there on his own personal land and his pecan farm that he now owns in Georgia that he lives on, and you know, doing all the work himself and everything. And you know, it was just kind of, it was interesting because, you know, I remember us from watching the Monster Buck and the Bone Collector videos and all that, you know, him hunting with his dad and everything, and you could tell that there was a bond there. But it's like, I mean, obviously they're filming a show, but every single episode his dad is out there working at his place, and they're building stuff together, they're working on stuff together, and you know, it's just, you know, it's obvious that they've continued that, you know, father-son relationship through hunting in their entire life, for their entire life, you know. And so it's just it's cool to see, and you know, it's, I don't know, kind of, it inspired a few things for me, that just watching that little series that he's got going on. I think it's called Downton Dixie, is what it's called, but inspired a few things for me, and maybe even some stuff that we still have in the works at Fall Obsession that we haven't rolled out yet. In coming months we might see. But
well, I remember when you started Fall Obsession, in the early days, one of the mission statements, if you will, was to carry on the heritage of hunting, you know, in the generations. So that was part of some of what you had initially come up with, certainly.
It was, and we had.
It is.
I feel like we've always had a lot of content on our pages about father-son huntings, whether it's our, us coming up with stuff or our staffers sending their stuff in. We've always had that approach, and Fall Obsession over the years I started the blog at this point over 10 years ago, which is crazy, but those original blog posts and everything, but it was it's been many things over the years, and we've finally found our niche and built a company around the media production side of it, really to be all inclusive of everything.
Right.
But that vein from the very beginning of the hunting heritage, the family traditions and that kind of stuff, it still runs strong, and it will continue to run strong through this brand is my intentions. So.
Right.
Absolutely.
And the evolution, you take different fingers, if you will, into the evolution, but yeah, the foundation is still that heritage and
Absolutely.
relationship bonding, father, son,
Yeah.
mother,
That ultimately, like I just mentioned, whether it's a father, an actual father, or just a mentor figure, ultimately that type of relationship, that type of bond, that's what hunting is built on. That's how hunting's carried on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're trying to continue through the Fall Obsession brand.
Right.
So.
Right.
Well, Dad, it's been good to sit down and just chat for a few moments. I know it won't be I know this is a shorter episode. Like I said, it's Father's Day weekend, and I gotta go fix an AC now at my new house. But wanted to at least take a few moments. And for our listeners, I know this is a much shorter episode than we normally run, but wanted to at least kind of recognize not just the Father's Day holiday, but what it means to those of us who are hunters, and to me personally, and obviously what better way than sitting down with you. So
Yeah, great, thank you.
And we'll be back on here again soon. I know I didn't think honestly that I'd get you back on the podcast until closer to fall, just because I know you're busy with your company and everything, and it's your busy season, but I know as we get closer to fall, I'm sure we'll be podcasting regularly from deer camp, and hopefully with Nick and Robbie too at some point. And I think we got some good things coming with that.
We got
so
a few work days still to go, and
Yeah.
and that'll be good to kind of set us up for more opportunity for this next
Yeah.
year, and more success this next year.
Yeah, since we've been out there the other day, we've been getting some pictures of a lot of pigs, and the bucks are just now starting to kind of come into frame a little bit, and starting to get an idea on what they might be looking like, and got some promising potential from some bucks out there and everything. So I see us doing at least another kind of preseason podcast, probably, once we have an idea on what deer are where, and kind of formulating our hunting season plans, as we draw closer to October and November. So
Sounds good.
well, for our listeners, again, shorter episode, and if the audio was not the best like it has been, I apologize. And I lost my voice 2-3 days ago, and it's just now coming back today, so I'm a little froggy. Not good for a podcast host, but appreciate you guys listening. If you haven't already, hit that follow and subscribe button, whatever podcast platform you're listening on. We're on all major podcast apps. Our episodes are also available on our YouTube channel and on the Waypoint TV app. I mentioned that earlier. That's a free hunting and outdoor streaming service. They have hundreds of different hunting and fishing shows on there, some of them from pretty big name guys. They also have a bunch of podcasts on there, and Fall Obsession Podcast is one of them. So go download that app and start exploring around. On our YouTube channel, we post new videos weekly, so be sure you head over there and subscribe. Normally we do a podcast video. I try to do a podcast video for every podcast. That's not happening for this one, just because it's the quick thrown together style episode, but we will be back on the podcast video train next week. FallObsession.com, that's our website. It's where you can go to find all of our content. Like I mentioned earlier, we're a hunting and outdoor media production company, so be sure that you head on over there, explore the hundreds of different topics that we cover in different forms on there, and while you're there, pick you up a t-shirt and a decal. We got some new designs that we rolled out this spring that we're trying to move, so If you can, help support us. Lastly, Derek and Lacey over at Ridge Rock Hunt Company, they're our podcast sponsors. We greatly appreciate them. If you haven't already, go and check out Ridge Rock Hunt Company. They book hunts. They'll set you up with a trusted and vetted outfitter in North America, wherever you guys are looking to go for your next hunting adventure. And Derek will work with you to find something that will hopefully be within your budget and price range. So Ridge Rock Hunt Company, go check them out. Dad, thanks. Appreciate you coming back on.
You're welcome. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Love you.
Love you too.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week for another Fall Obsession podcast episode.